The Zorvan Empire had ruled the stars for over 600 years. Their warships were feared in every galaxy. No one dared to fight them. Planets that refused to bow were turned into dust. They believed no power could challenge them. Not now, not ever. Admiral Vuro stood inside the Empire's high command tower. The room was full of glowing screens showing peaceful planets, trade routes, and battle-ready fleets. Everything looked calm. Everything looked normal. But then something changed. A red light flashed on the control panel. One of the communication officers turned pale. "Sir," he said slowly, "we've lost contact with Sector 9. All signals are gone. No reason. No warning." Admiral Vuro frowned. "Is it a technical glitch?" "We're not sure. It just went silent." The Zorvans laughed. Sector 9 was on the edge of the Empire. A quiet place. Nothing but old mining stations and empty space. Still, protocol demanded action. A scout ship was sent to investigate. It never returned. No distress call. No explosion. No escape pods. Just nothing. For the first time in many years, the Empire felt something strange. Confusion. 3 days later, more systems near Sector 9 went dark. The silence was spreading. Fast. Some commanders called for full alert. Others mocked the idea. "Maybe a star exploded," said General Tharo, sipping his drink. "Maybe a pirate group found a new toy." But deep inside the science wing of the tower, one old woman didn't laugh. Her name was Marin. She had studied lost signals and deep space phenomena for 50 years. She stood before the council and said, "This is no accident. This silence is not natural. It is designed." The council ignored her. That night, the capital planet's skies flickered. Satellites turned off one by one. Defense grids blinked and went black. No alarm sounded, just a deep, quiet hush. Then the signal came. One single sound, like a soft heartbeat, echoed across every screen. Then it stopped. No one spoke. No one moved. Suddenly, scanners showed something massive at the edge of the system. A fleet. Unknown, silent. Their shapes were strange, sharp, smooth, nothing like Zorvan ships. They hovered just outside the defense line, doing nothing. No name. No ID. No message. Admiral Vuro's voice shook for the first time in years. Where did they come from? No one knew. The fleet didn't move. It didn't speak. It just stayed there. The Zorvans had always believed in power. They believed in fear. But this silence made them feel small. Back on the moon base, Captain Lero was sent to make first contact. His cruiser moved slowly toward the unknown ships. As it got closer, his team noticed something strange. "There's no heat signature," said the technician. "No radio signals. They're just floating." Captain Lero opened a channel. "This is the Zorvan Empire," he said. "Identify yourself." No reply. He repeated it, still silence. He gave the order, "Fire a warning shot." A single energy beam shot through space, just past the lead unknown ship. Still no response. Then, everything changed. In less than 2 seconds, Captain Lero's cruiser disappeared from every radar. The ship didn't explode. It didn't send a signal. It was simply gone. The control room on the capital planet erupted in chaos. What happened? Where's the cruiser? There's nothing left. The Empire had faced many enemies before. But this was different. No demands, no warning. Just a silent fleet that erased their strongest ship like it was dust. Panic began to spread. Moran watched the screens quietly. Her eyes were full of fear, but also something else, recognition. She opened an old file, a report from 400 years ago, a file that had been buried deep. One word was written in red at the top. Human. The Zorvans had wiped out Earth 4 centuries ago. They burned it, bombed it, destroyed its people. No human life was ever found again. But now, maybe something had survived. Maybe the silence was not death. Maybe it was the sound of something returning. As the fleet hovered in space, lights blinked on one of the unknown ships. A low sound played through the system like an old voice, full of static. Then a message appeared on every screen across the Zorvan Empire. "We remember." And then silence again. The entire Zorvan Empire was on edge. After the unknown fleet erased Captain Lero's cruiser without a trace, fear began to spread like fire. Generals shouted at their officers. Citizens asked questions no one could answer. Every planet turned its eyes toward the silent ships floating just outside the Empire's main system. Admiral Vuro stood before the High Council, his voice tight with anger. "We are the Zorvan Empire," he said. "We don't run. We don't beg. We strike." The Empress nodded slowly. "Then strike. Make them regret their silence." A full battle fleet was prepared. 15 warships, led by the Empire's pride, the ZNS Havoc, a destroyer known for its brutal firepower. Its commander, General Kirax, was known for destroying planets without blinking. As the fleet approached the unknown ships, all of Zorva watched. News channels broadcasted live. People stood in silence, waiting to see the Empire win again. General Kirax opened a channel and gave a final warning. "This is your last chance. Identify yourself or prepare to be destroyed." There was no answer. He raised his hand. "All ships, fire." A wave of energy blasts shot across the dark space. Lasers, plasma cannons, and missiles lit up the black void. Then nothing. The unknown fleet didn't move, didn't fire back, just absorbed the attack. The weapons vanished into their shields like water into sand. "Direct hit," one officer said. "But no damage." General Kirax's eyes widened. Fire again, full power. The ships obeyed. Again the weapons hit. Again nothing happened. And then, without warning, the unknown fleet moved. Not forward, not backward. They shifted, just a little. Like chess pieces, like machines. 1 second passed, then 2. And then, the entire Zorvan battle fleet shut down. Engines stopped. Lights went dark. Screens went blank. Crews screamed in panic. Inside the ZNS Havoc, General Kirax grabbed his command chair. "Restart the core. Get us back online." No one could. One by one, the ships began to vanish, just like Lero's cruiser. Not exploded, not damaged, just erased, removed from space like someone had deleted them. Within 30 seconds, all 15 ships were gone. The live broadcast ended in static. People across the Empire screamed. On many worlds, riots began. Fear had arrived. Real fear, not the kind the Empire used to control others. In the capital, the Empress stared at the empty screen. What are they?" she asked, more to herself than to anyone else. Admiral Vuro said nothing. Suddenly, every screen across the Empire lit up. A human voice, deep and cold, echoed across the systems. It was not angry. It was not loud. But it was unforgettable. "You forgot us. We never forgot you." The voice disappeared. And then, as if mocking the Empire, a signal began to play. A low, slow heartbeat, just like before. Maran, the old scientist, stood in the command center. She spoke softly. "They're not here to talk. Not here to invade. They're here to remind us." "Remind us of what?" someone asked. She looked at the stars. "Of what happens when you erase a world and think no one will ever return." Panic was now everywhere. The Empire had ruled with power, but now that power meant nothing. One high general shouted, "Launch the Omega weapon. Destroy them." But the Empress raised her hand. "No," she said. "We don't even know where they came from." Just then, another message appeared on the main screen. This time it was a short sentence written in an old Earth language, translated instantly by the system. "Part 1 of your punishment has begun. Everyone froze. What did that mean? How many parts were there? What was next? The Empress stood. Her voice tried to sound strong, but even she could not hide the fear. Find out what they are, where they came from, how they knew our language. But deep down, everyone in that room felt the same thing. They already knew. Humans, the ghosts of Earth. They had come back. And they were just getting started. The Zorvan Empire had never known fear. They had crushed hundreds of species, ruled star systems without mercy, and erased planets from maps like they were nothing. But now fear was everywhere. After the unknown human fleet erased the Empire's strongest warships without firing a single shot, panic spread across every world. Shops closed, trade stopped, people gathered in crowds looking up at the sky, waiting for something to fall. In the capital city of GalacticPrime, alarms rang day and night. Fighter squadrons flew in circles above the cities, scanning the skies, but they found nothing. The human fleet had disappeared, like ghosts. No one knew where they went, but the silence they left behind felt heavier than war. In dark rooms underground, secret meetings were held. Military leaders argued. Some wanted to use planet-killer weapons. Others wanted to hide. The Empress sat alone in her chamber, replaying the message on her screen. Part 1 of your punishment has begun. She didn't sleep, she didn't eat. She just stared. What is Part 2? She whispered. Across the galaxy, strange things began to happen. Satellites stopped working. Energy cores shut down. Factories that built warships lost power. On a planet named Dervos 9, the skies turned dark for 3 days straight, not from clouds, but from fear. The sun worked fine, but people refused to leave their homes. Something unseen had changed. And then came the whispers. On mining worlds, workers swore they heard voices over their comms. Not orders, not warnings. Just quiet voices whispering in old Earth languages, words no Zorvan could understand. But one word always came through clearly: remember. At first, the Empire tried to control the fear. They sent messages saying everything was fine. They arrested those who spoke about the missing fleet. They shut down networks that spread panic. But it didn't work, because fear had entered the hearts of their people. And hearts don't follow orders. In a training base on planet Corin 3, a young cadet named Elrin stood with his unit. They were told the humans were nothing, just ghosts. Tricks, no real threat. But Elrin wasn't so sure. He had seen the footage, the one moment where the ZNS Havoc simply vanished. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It just stopped existing. And that scared him more than any weapon. Meanwhile, far from the Empire's core, in a secret lab floating above a dead planet, Moran worked day and night. She studied the human message, looking for clues. Her hands shook as she unlocked a classified file, one no one had opened in 400 years. Operation Earthfire. It was the official record of Earth's destruction. Back then, the Zorvans believed Earth was weak. Humans were divided, emotional, and slow to evolve. So the Empire sent warships. They bombed cities, poisoned oceans, sent machines to clean up the remains. They believed they had erased every trace of the human race. But Moran found something. A small line at the bottom of the file. Warning. One deep space human arc ship escaped. Unknown destination. She leaned back in her chair, eyes wide. They had missed one. Just one ship. And maybe that was enough. Back in the capital, Admiral Vuro stood before the High Council once more. The humans are not ghosts. They are survivors, he said. They have hidden, waited, and now they return with technology we can't even understand. The council was silent. Vuro stepped closer. If we do not change the way we think, if we do not understand what we're facing, we will lose everything. The Empress looked around the room. Her voice was quiet, but sharp. Then we must find them, speak to them, or destroy them before they destroy us. But even as she spoke, a new message appeared on every screen in the Empire. This time it came with images. Thousands of photos flashed one after another. Old human cities, children laughing, soldiers fighting, people crying. Then fire, then ash, then silence. And finally a message in red. We don't want revenge. We want memory. You will never forget us again. The screen turned black, and across the galaxy, lights began to flicker. A signal pulsed. Ships stopped mid-flight. Weapons locked themselves. The Empire, once proud and powerful, now stood on the edge of something it couldn't fight. Something ancient, something angry, and something human. The Empire had gone quiet. Not because things were better, but because no one knew what to do anymore. Admirals stopped giving speeches. Soldiers stopped training. News anchors just stared into the camera, unsure what to say. Even the Empress, once feared across galaxies, stayed hidden in her palace. Everyone was waiting. Waiting for the humans to speak again. And then they did. The message came during the Empire's largest communication broadcast. Billions of citizens were watching a speech from one of the top generals. He had barely spoken 2 sentences when the screen glitched. The image twisted. The sound broke. And a single figure appeared. He looked human, but his face was covered with a dark helmet. His eyes glowed white. Behind him was a sea of shadows, tall shapes, all standing still like statues, human soldiers. He didn't shout. He didn't smile. He just spoke. You erased our world. Now we erase your peace. Across the galaxy, people leaned in closer to their screens. The figure continued. We are not here to invade. We are not here to rule. We are here to remind. He raised one hand. Behind him, a hologram appeared in old Earth City, burning, screaming, falling. Then another hologram. A child crying beside ruins. Then another. Zorvan warships bombing blue oceans. The figure looked straight into the camera. You taught your children we were weak. You told your people we were gone. But you forgot one thing. We learn. We adapt. We remember. He paused. And we never forgive. Then the screen turned black. But it wasn't over. All across the Empire, lights flickered. Then every single screen, on walls, ships, helmets, even wristbands, showed the same sentence. Part 2 begins now. Then came the shockwaves. Across 10 systems, power grids collapsed. Communication lines failed. Starships dropped from the sky. Gravity control on space stations twisted, sending equipment floating and crashing. And all of it happened without a single shot fired. Admiral Vuro ran into the command chamber shouting orders. Find the source of the attack. Trace the signal. But there was nothing to trace. The signals weren't being sent from any known point. It was like they were coming from space itself. It's impossible, one officer said. They're everywhere and nowhere. Then quietly someone whispered what everyone was thinking. They're in our systems, not physically, digitally. The human fleet hadn't just come with ships, they had come with code. Silent, invisible, deadly. The Empire had always believed in strength. Big ships, big weapons. But the humans, they had found another way. They had learned to strike without touching. And it was working. In the science base above the dead planet, Moran watched her screens go dark, one by one. Even her backup systems failed. They're inside everything, she said. They're using our own tech against us. She looked at the last screen still glowing. On it was a list of systems being attacked. But at the bottom, something new appeared. A message, just for her. Moran, we know you remember. Her heart skipped a beat. Only the old records mentioned her name. Whoever was behind this, they knew her. They knew everything. She whispered how. No answer came, just silence. Back in the capital, the Empress held an emergency meeting. Generals, scientists, even spies were there. "We need to strike now," one general shouted. "Use the planet cracker. Destroy the systems they've infected." Another shook his head. "We don't even know which ones they've taken. It could be all of them. It could be us next." The Empress slammed her hand down. "We are the Empire. We do not lose." But her voice didn't sound strong anymore. It sounded scared. And then, as if answering her, another human message appeared, this time only for the Council. It was short, 5 words. "This is only the beginning." The room went silent, because now they understood. The humans weren't just here for revenge. They had a plan. And it was far from over. The Zorvan Empire had always believed in strength. But now, their weapons were useless. Their fleets were gone. Their systems were crumbling. And worst of all, the humans still hadn't attacked the way everyone expected. No invasion. No armies. Just fear and silence. Every day, something new went wrong. Defense satellites shut down. Warp gates jammed. Cities flickered in and out of power like candles in the wind. And yet no one had seen even one human face, except for the masked figure on the message screens. In the war room of the capital, the Empress sat with her top minds. Maps covered the walls. Broken systems, damaged planets, lost fleets. It was all there. "What are they doing?" she asked. No one answered. Not because they were scared to speak, but because none of them knew. "It's like they're waiting," said Admiral Vuro. "But for what?" Across the table, Marin, the old scientist who had studied human history, spoke quietly. "They're not just attacking us." Everyone looked at her. "They're studying us, learning how we react, watching how we break down." "Break down?" the Empress snapped. Moran nodded. "They don't want to destroy us quickly. They want us to understand why this is happening. They want us to feel what they felt." "And what did they feel?" someone asked. Moran looked at the images still on the screen. Burning Earth cities, crying children, dead skies. Loss, silence, betrayal. And now they want us to live with it. As she spoke, something strange happened. The lights dimmed. Then the floor shook, just once, like something enormous had passed nearby. Every officer reached for their weapons. Then, outside the palace window, they saw it. A ship. Not just a ship. A shadow in space, bigger than anything the Empire had ever built. It hovered above the planet, blocking the stars. No weapons fired. It just watched. The people below screamed, some ran, some fell to their knees, others simply stared. And then, once again, the message screens across the Empire turned on. The same masked figure appeared. This time he held something in his hands. A small, round object. He turned it slowly. It was a globe. "Earth." The voice came through, calm and cold. "You took our home. Now we hold yours in our hand." The screen flashed. A massive data burst hit the Empire's systems. For 60 seconds, every military file, every secret mission, every hidden weapon was exposed. To everyone, the Empire's lies were revealed in front of its own people. Genocides, cover-ups, the truth behind Earth's destruction. The Zorvan public saw it all, and they were horrified. They hadn't known. The Empire had hidden everything. But now they couldn't look away. Riots began instantly. Protests rose from 100 worlds. Soldiers dropped their weapons. Citizens turned on their leaders. It was chaos. But the humans still didn't fire a single shot. Instead, another message came. "This was your truth. This is your weakness. Now live with it." Back in the war room, one general shouted, "They're breaking our empire from the inside." Moran stood slowly. "No, they're making us see. They've already won the war. This is their lesson." The Empress clenched her fists. "What do they want?" she asked. But Moran already knew. They want to be remembered. not just as a name in a file, but as a people who were wronged and came back stronger. Suddenly, the giant ship above the capital began to move. Not forward. Up. Away. As if it had finished its task, and one by one, similar shadows appeared over other key planets. Not attacking, just watching, then leaving. Within minutes, they were gone. Just like that. No fire, no blood, just silence. But the damage was done. Not to buildings, not to ships. To the Zorvan heart. To the pride that held the Empire together. And as fear turned to guilt, something strange began to happen. Across the galaxy, leaders began to speak truth. People demanded change. The mighty Empire was starting to bend. All because of a plan no one understood until it was too late. A plan that needed no war. Only memory. Only truth. Only humans. The Empire had always believed it would last forever. Its ships filled the stars. Its voice was law. Its enemies disappeared. But now the galaxy was quiet. Not because the Empire had crushed its enemies, but because it had finally seen itself and what it had done. And that was more painful than any war. Across Zorvan space, statues of emperors were pulled down. Old banners were burned. Secret prisons were opened. Hidden truth was spoken. The people didn't scream for blood. They whispered for forgiveness. The once proud empire now looked into its own reflection and saw the monster it had become. Moran stood alone in the old science station above the burned world, Earth. It had taken years, but something green now grew from the soil. Not much. Just enough. She bent down and touched a tiny plant pushing through the cracked stone. A new beginning. Behind her, a hologram shimmered. It was him, the human with the masked face. Still silent. Still watching. But this time, he removed his helmet. Moran stared at the man's face. He was old. Tired. His eyes carried the weight of 1,000 ghosts. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Why show your face?" The man didn't answer right away. Then, in a calm, deep voice, he spoke. "Because you listened." Moran lowered her head. "We should have listened long ago." He looked at the sky, black, endless, silent. "We didn't want war," he said. "We wanted peace. But you turned our peace into ashes." She nodded. "I know." He looked back at her. "Now it's your turn. Rebuild, but not in your name. In theirs." He pointed at the plant. "Grow something better." And then he was gone. No flash, no sound. Just gone. Back on the capital world, the Empress had stepped down. No guards, no escape. She sat in a quiet room, watching the message that started it all again and again. The figure. The voice. The promise. This is only the beginning. And it was. Because the humans hadn't come for revenge. They had come to end a story that started in fire and replace it with one that could grow in peace. But they hadn't stayed. They left nothing behind. No base, no outpost, no ruler, just memories. Memories strong enough to bring an empire to its knees. And a lesson the stars would never forget. Don't mistake silence for weakness. Don't turn peace into death. And never forget that even the smallest spark can become a storm. Out in the far edges of space, the human fleet moved in silence. Watching. Waiting. Not to destroy. But to make sure it never happened again. And somewhere, deep in the dark, Earth bloomed again.